it looks like it has been delayed, but we are actually live. Okay, so for those who perhaps coming in a little late, we had clicked to go live. You told us to go live. What you've missed so far, just for those who are watching at home, is the welcome. We noted the bookstore, which is a great success. We've had an apology from Councillor Montague, and I gave an apology on behalf of the council for co-option because we had not put an application deadline for the vacancy. As such, we had some applications prior to the meeting papers, but some afterwards, which means I propose that we defer the co-option until our next meeting in December. Councillor Taylor, I believe you second that. Should we get a show of hands for approval, please? Thank you very much. Okay, declarations of interest, item number 4. Do we have any declarations? Councillor Westby.
I've got an interest in one of the planning applications.
Okay.
Professional interest.
It's a professional interest. There's a pecuniary interest.
Yeah.
Okay. You will need to leave the room for that one, that particular part. Okay. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I'm going to declare a interest in item 17, just because one of the quotes is from my solicitor, who I'm obviously working with at the moment. So if you want that as a pecuniary interest, just on the safe side, I'm more than happy to leave the room.
Thank you. Councillor Down.
Item 9 and 11.
Item 9
11.
11. Is there a pecuniary interest?
11.
11. Okay. So for that one, likewise.
I'm
Okay.
in favour.
Thank you. Just make a note of that to make sure we get that right. Any other interests? Pecuniary interests? No. Okay. Public participation. Do we have anyone from the public who would like to raise anything? Yes, please.
Yes, Cliff Amos, Chair of the Attleborough Heritage Group. I noticed from the agenda that item 10B is correspondence regarding landscaping of the new station car park. The Attleborough Heritage Group has 6 members who are official Greater Anglia Station adopter volunteers. Bit of a mouthful. We have many varied duties, but one of which is to look after all the planted areas on the station, which we've been doing now for I think the last 4 or 5 years. It's very unfortunate that Greater Anglia's contractors ran over budget on a lot of the work down there, and they felt it necessary to cut the plan for the planting that was going to be done to save money. And we was willing to obviously take over the looking after of all the planted areas once it was done. Now it's not being done. Us volunteers are now actively researching ways of landscaping the car park area. But we're still, it's early days, so we're trying to research, and hopefully Greater Anglia will come up with some money to actually help with that funding. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Can I comment?
Yes, you can.
Just to respond to that, Cliff, if I may, thank you very much for that. I met with Alan Neville on Friday, and he was saying what amazing work you do. Part of the problem is the section by the road, which is not there. Basically, it's fallen into a black hole at the moment. So it looks like that may be transferred to Norfolk County Council, because it will eventually be a bus lay-by as part of the SU. So I don't think that section will fall into your area anyway, but rightly or wrongly, for the moment, we have asked our grounds team to go and clear it up so that it looks a bit more presentable. But we'll have to maybe have a chat offline about what the boundaries are, because there seems to be some disagreement.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, the area outside the new wall actually does fall into the auspices of Norfolk County Council's Highway Department for actually providing the bus stop there in a sort of small lay-by. There are 4 areas of areas that can be planted within Networks Rail's responsibility for the car park, and they're the ones that we were going to take over, and hopefully we will be able to continue with those. Thank you.
Sure. Any other members of the public who want to raise anything? No, you'll get another opportunity later on as well, should you change your mind. We'll move on to item number 6 then, please, which are the minutes of the town council meeting held on 4th October. Councillor Marsh.
I've just got a query. It says on the motion of councillor, seconded by councillor.
What page are you referring to?
On the front, yeah,
Oh, yes.
it was, yeah, no, that's fine. It's just I was reading them down. I'm like, okay.
That's fine. We'll have a record of those from the previous meeting, both written and on sort of on YouTube. So we
It
need to
just
just
proves I
correct
read
that.
them.
No, thank you. Yes, well done. Any other comments? Councillor Dale?
081.21, I left the room, but I did return. You know, they did let me out. I did return.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
honest,
That's fine.
thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on the minutes? That's why we need to look at these, for instance, now. Well done. Okay. With those amendments, would anybody like to propose the acceptance of the minutes? Councillor Down, you want to second that? Councillor Westby, show of hands for approval, please. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. We're going to item 7A, planning applications that have been agreed and responses made, and they are for confirmation by members for ratification. Would anybody want to propose that or have any queries on that? Debbie, is that
A proposal.
okay? And any more like second that? Councillor Tyra, and a show of hands for approval.
However,
Thank you. Any opposed? And abstained. 2 abstentions. Councillor Down, Councillor Westby, but that has been carried. And whilst we go on to 7B, which I'll ask Councillor Westby to step out for a moment. Or is it just, or do you want to wait until the item you get?
no, I'm sorry, I'm confused. I'm not involved in some way, so I didn't need to abstain for that.
That's okay.
It's carried anyway.
Let's carry. We'll go through these 4 in here. The first one ending 1410 HOV, which is 14 Wickham Road, which is a replacement conservatory rear and building. Any queries, comments? I have no objections personally. So does anybody have any objections? No, so no objections. Item 1425F, the Mulberry Tree Station Road, which is a store and garage at the rear of the property. Any comments? I personally have no objections. May not have been raised to. No, no objections then. Item 1409F, which is to do with the old, yes, what's the name of the place?
Brush.
That's a yes. It's described differently on here as the Acorn Decorating Products, which I know that we don't refer to it Thursday locally before. So, and that's for the change of use for the Lighthouse Church, who they have an open day. Anybody who took the time on Friday to see their plans, and it's a change of use for the place of worship and associated facilities. Anybody would like to make a comment? Keith, I'll have to suspend standing orders for you to make a comment.
All right.
Okay, so right. Okay. Any comments from councillors? Yes.
Sorry, it's not a comment in terms of objections or any concerns about it at all. I do fully support it. However, I think we just put a comment in to recommend that it's another the loss of employment and employment. And can we talk to them about further employment land designation or after? So in principle, totally agree that we need to keep an eye on, we need to increase the amount of employment land allocation in the town.
That's a very good point. Do councillors agree with that comment before we move on to other comments?
I thought, sorry,
Sorry,
I
councillor.
thought that had already been granted planning for housing anyway. This is change of use.
This is change of use, yes.
So planning has already been granted on this for
Yeah,
housing.
but-
So whilst I agree it is a loss, but this isn't a new thing. This is something already planning has been granted to take it out of the industrial use into residential use, and now it's being moved from residential into the use of the church. So
Yeah, when the, just to clarify this, yes, when he was looking for housing, that never went through because of the associated issues
Mhm.
with the site in turning it into housing. It wasn't economically viable, I understand.
Right.
However, the change of use from industrial to this new, albeit facilities for the community, in addition to what they're doing for the church, which is wonderful things they're talking about, which I support fully. But I also fully support what Councillor Tyra said, that it's another loss of an area of industrial land on top of the Grampian land that is going to be changed to housing as well. So that's two key sites locally that is turned to housing, in addition to housing that we have within the community. The last thing we want to be is a commuter town. We need viable local employment for those that reside here. It's a good economic strategy. It is also an ecological strategy when we're talking about COP26 as well. If you work and live locally. Councillor Buss.
Yes, thank you for your comments. From my own previous experience in research and what have you, was very apparent that communities need more than a place to come home to, have their food, go to the pub, and then go back, watch telly, go to sleep. There is a need for a community that deals also with the personal and emotional and social issues that arise. We have, as a council, started in that way, and the bookshop is an example of that, but we need something that is permanent. Now, I know that, and as the mayor has remarked, the church is engaged very much on the community side and is going to offer facilities with its buildings once everything is completed. It is aiming, and already does, seek to help young people who have got themselves into problems drug-wise and such like. It is an asset to the community. It builds up the community. Now, I know that there will be those who press for housing and more housing, and we have got housing and more housing. Yes, we have industrial sites, and this could be an industrial site. On the other hand, particularly since the government has said that brownfield sites can be now used, that there is a potential to have extra facilities for new businesses as they come in. And incidentally, when people come in as strangers, they need to know who is going to help them when they've got a crisis, when they've got a problem. We could look at the situation with the district, county councils overrun with seeking to help out, but to get an organization, a church, yes, to assist and encourage is to me a real asset to the town. I recommend that we give that initial permission.
Thank you, councillor Buss. Just to clarify this, it is not for us to decide the planning commission. We aren't the planning authority.
Yeah.
But what we are looking for is a very real reasons why there may be objectionable causes or things to concern ourselves with. I do validate the things that you said about what they do for the community and yes, support them in their work. But as a planning application, I have no objections to them doing so, providing that we can find alternative employment land in the vicinity of Attleborough to help the economic profile of the town as well. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because when this first got brought to our attention, I remember looking at the neighbourhood plan for reference, and actually on page 12, it does confirm that the housing was it did have the permission, numbers permitted. So the permission for the housing obviously had already been agreed. So I think, although I agree with what you're saying about the employment land, I don't think we should necessarily say it in conjunction with this application. I think that's a separate conversation that we need to be having generally.
Yes, councillor Taylor.
I totally agree. I mean, my comments were not, this is linked to the application itself. We're looking at this application. I certainly have no objections. All I was saying is, in terms of responding, it's worth nudging Breckland to say that this is yet another bit of employment land that has disappeared over the years, which it has, and there's no new further land being allocated in the local plan. So it is a separate discussion, but it provides an opportunity to enter into that separate discussion. That's all I was trying to say.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'm just saying, having looked at the plans, I think needs to be noted, actually, what they're putting on there is a provision for quite a large theatre cum meeting space, a lot of seminar rooms, potentially bringing in companies who wish to hold functions in the town. So although it might be losing one form of industry, there's a potential for expanding in another.
There is indeed. Well put, Councillor Smith. Yes. So thank you for that. So I haven't heard any objections. So the official response from the council, for as far as we can go, is supportive, no objections. Is that agreed? And yes, we will also flag at the point on a wider scale that we do need more employment allocation land around the area, service employment allocation land that is fit for purpose. Thank you. The last one within this section, 1437F, 142, and that is the conversion of a detached double garage to a new dwelling. I have checked this. It isn't particularly a large dwelling, but it does have its own parking area. I personally don't have any objections to this. No objections? Okay. Thank you very much. We can invite Councillor Westby, if you can come back in.
Any notice coming aside here? Thank you.
Said it loud enough. Okay. Item 8, councillor reports. Do we have any councillor reports? Councillor Tyra.
I think
Councillor Lang.
there's probably more exciting.
Councillor Lang, I'll let you go first.
Okay, reference the Events and Communications Committee, we've had a meeting and obviously this last weekend we've had the book sale, very well received. We raised over £700, which we've calculated to be between 3,500 books roughly were sold over those 2 days, which is an incredible amount of books. We've got quite a lot left over, ready for hopefully the next sale, which we'll have in the spring. But I just want to thank the community for, we've only been asking for books for a couple of months, and all those books were donated, which was incredible. And we didn't even have to ask for help. The help came in without having to plead for it. And it was just a very nice atmosphere over 2 days. So we'll hopefully be repeating the exercise in the spring. So between now and then we'll start nagging for more books, and hopefully people will recycle the ones they bought over the weekend and donate them back so somebody else can have a read of them. And yeah, so thanks all round for that.
Thank you very much. That's right.
Just briefly, regarding the British Legion branch, just to confirm, as it stands at the moment, there will be a parade. Try and get as normal a service for Remembrance Sunday as possible. If there are people watching, there have been changes in personnel in the branch. I unfortunately don't have a full list of community groups that normally attend the parade. But we'll get some notes on the town council website if councillors are happy with that, and through social media. But just to confirm, we will have a parade and encourage as many people to turn up, subject to sensitivity about the parade.
Yes.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, can I just follow on what Ed was just saying? So will we be parading from Edenside again?
As per normal.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyway, I haven't got too much to report this month. I had to isolate at the beginning of the month because I've been in hospital, an eye operation. We had a planning meeting today, Brecon, which was quite a longish meeting. One application for Attleborough was the one just in Edenside, Douglas House, which was well debated. The agent put a good case over, and then I put my points because I stayed on the side of the committee. The case officer was recommending refusal, would you believe that? Because they reduced it down to 1 bedroom. I mean, it's so serviceable for all access to post office, shops, or whatever. And as I told them, I mean, Douglas House or its same ownership. It's a vets now and the flats above. And you look on further down around, there's dwellings on a smaller postage stamp area. Anyway, it was put to the vote and it went through 5-4. So I'm glad it didn't cross the floor. Otherwise, I'd have had to. I can't vote then, see, because I'm a planning member, but we were 1 or 2 members short. But it went 5-4. All right. So that was overturned the refusal. I would like to just mention, as you've been discussing the Britain Brush one, now I'm in my district report, I have the church leader, it's been my patch, it's been keeping me up to speed with email, and it's early days, what we're doing, and I fully support it. It's got a lot of potential, it's a big area, one step at a time. But I have had an email just back from him to see we got the community like it was down Harpen Road, for the community asset. So we just have to see them let progress. They got a long way to go. But, I mean, people would have then the option to buy it, whether it's community or whatever. I mean, I think that's about all I've got to say. We did have a little Simon Wood mentioned on item 6 on the agenda about the local plan, the Brecon one. I'm not on scrutiny. The chairman of scrutiny is our district councillor and county councillor Audrey Oliver, but they sent it back to cabinet. I don't know the ins and outs and things, but anyway, that's where it is.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
It's very useful to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other council reports? Sorry, councillor Bear.
Yes, I am on scrutiny, and it was sent back because it was taking too long to do. The years, instead of doing it in 5 years, they were putting it on to 7 years, and they said the gap was too long. Developers were going to get in, and it would weeding it all out. So yes, it was a long discussion. It went on, and then it was sent back to Cabinet. And the other thing, I've done some domestic abuse training with Bretland, and that was really, really interesting. And I think actually as councillors, we could maybe have a session here, because it was really helpful. You know, the signs to look out for and how you can help. And that was, yeah, that was done. Bretland at the moment is doing quite a lot of training for councillors.
Are you able to forward that information to our clerk, Michelle?
Yeah, that it really is. I can give you the details who it was. And yeah.
Thank you very much for that.
Okay.
That's a very good point.
I think just referring back to that, Mr. Chairman, I was there and that was very intriguing. And I had the two, it was a DAISY programme and another one, but I've got two booklets. Yeah, bit horrendous, you know, experiences of people.
That's what I was thinking to bring up the DAISY programme, because I've been approached by them, because I've done work with them, and said about how we're trying to engage with community law, and they had said they'd be very interested in perhaps doing something on the square one day about they do some very, very good work for Bretland. So I'll speak to you.
As far as events committee
Events
as well,
committee, yeah.
it's not just the book
So it's not
sales
just
or
the
the
fun.
fireworks,
No.
anything else. There's things that are
Yeah.
very valuable to the community as
But
well.
I have had personal use with them, and they come highly recommended, and they're part of Bretland, so.
Brilliant. No, I fully support Councillor Ted.
Yeah, when we were just mentioning training, it just reminded me that I actually see it on Facebook. But Bretland are currently running a campaign to become a mindful town, in conjunction with obviously Mindful Mental Health Charity. And I think there's 3 training options, but 2 of them, although venues are to be confirmed, will be taking place in Attleborough. And details of that can be found on their social media. So anyone that's obviously at home, or any member of the public that's interested in becoming a champion for their community as part of this, can actually register to do so. And there'll be 2 training courses in Attleborough.
I believe councillors will fully support us promoting our own social media. Yeah, and absolutely, thank you very much for that information. Okay, thank you, councillors, for your reports. We will now go on to item 9, financial matters. 9A is to authorise payments. Do you have any questions on the payments list? Okay, would anybody like to a motion authorisation? Councillor Lane, anyone would like to second that motion? Councillor Tyrant, and show of hands for approval, please. Thank you. 9B, direct debits. Any questions? I'll propose acceptance of the direct debits. Councillor Westby second, and the show of hands for approval, please. Once again. 9C. Okay. Any questions? Anyone like to propose acceptance of income? Councillor Lane, second, please. If anyone. Councillor Tyra, and a show of hands for approval, please. That is approved. Any objections, abstentions? Councillor Dale abstained. D for information is the petty cash payments. Any questions? No. And finally, for information also, 9E, the income and expenditure, September 2020. Any questions? No. Okay. On to correspondence. 10A was a request that has been made in reference to the bar, but there has been a little bit more correspondence with the individuals since then, and it is recommended to councillors that we defer this until after we have conducted the ongoing tenancy review, which is going to be discussed further down the agenda. And our councillors happy for us to take that course of action. Sorry, yes. Oh, I propose that. Councillor Taylor's that second that.
Yeah.
They show hands for approval. Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Councillor there. That's carried. 10B. Request from resident. This has been discussed actually in the public participation part, where we're talking about the poor state of the grounds just outside of the Greater Anglia responsibility, as they have transferred ownership to Northern County Council as part of the bus lay-by or drop-off zone outside of there. So it's kind of fallen into a bit of a black hole. As Michelle mentioned, ground staff are going to tidy it up so it looks presentable. Councillor Tyler?
I was just concerned with regards to that, of course, landscaping, the maintenance plan is part of the planning application, and I think you can take that directly and say, you know, if this plan was approved, how it would be implemented. That's not to cause any friction, but I think just logically go through the steps of they got permission if landscaping was integral to that, which I suppose it would have been then for us to implement it. And then it can open discussions of does it become voluntary community, what have you, but I think let's just follow the logical steps on that.
Okay. Just so you know as well, whilst we're on the subject, next Monday is the official opening of the car park. Though it has been open for some weeks. Any other comments on this particular one? If we can respond back to the resident in question to explain the circumstances as well, that would be great. Well, thank you very much for taking the initiative, at least making it a little tidy in the short term. Okay. 10C, which is a request regarding the cycle racks at on the grounds rear of Rosecroft School. Councillor Lane.
Can I propose that we put this, if we're going to have this environment committee, that this is something that could be discussed there about the cycle racks in the town?
Yes.
Because obviously that is a very valid request there, but I'm sure there's other areas that we could look at.
Before you do so, comments. Would any school go through redevelopment like that, they have to produce a travel plan, and part of that is about sustainable travel. And bike racks would have come in as part of that, and bike travel. So it's worth looking at that travel plan, because I'm almost certain that bike racks would have been part of that.
But they'd be inside the school, wouldn't they? Not outside. They would be on the site. I think what this lady's talking about is outside.
Yeah, just to clarify, you're quite right. I mean, with regards to that parking standards, and it's why it's sent to cars and cycles. But you say my reading of this is parents and what have you, is there anywhere to leave bikes? And I think it's something we do need to look at. I know last summer with Breckland there was the opportunity for Breckland to provide cycle racks. I think we were going to look at locations, so certainly bring it through to the environment committee and let's see if we can start in.
Yeah, I fully support that suggestion. It goes to the environmental committee, and also just want to flag on that when you're looking at it, that Breckland did offer us a number of cycle racks, the location to be confirmed and determined later. So that may be something that there is a funding bridge and option for us available fairly soon.
That was quite recent, wasn't it, when they offered us those?
Yeah. Probably about 12 months ago we started the conversation, but as far as I'm aware, it hasn't been acted upon yet. Councillor Tyler.
So I'm just going to add to it. I mean, not just at Rosecroft, but when we're looking at the parks and the rec, you know, can we start looking at cycle provision and parking as well? So it'd be up that. Sorry, objective.
Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously, I have previously spoken about my support for the environment committee,
But I'm just a little bit worried the way that we talk about it is like it's definitely happening and
can't
council
really
haven't
say.
actually made that decision yet.
So,
And that's the
So
point
it's
of the
like-
maturation.
Yeah,
yes, absolutely, we can't prejudice that point. What I suggest is, should an environmental committee be set up, it'd be given to that. Otherwise, it returns back to council after we've done some investigation with Brecklin to determine if we have got access to those cycle racks. If everybody's happy with that. Okay, I don't think that needs to be a proposal per se, that's more of a silent. Item 10B is regarding the, as described, homeless per surface. And asking the council to formally take this complaint up with the bus company. Councillor Bus.
I had earlier worked with Councillor Montague regarding improving the bus service, and the main bus company had agreed, and there were services that went through to the hospital on a regular basis, and there was even a service that went through to Thetford, but it wasn't used very much. And when the bus company were going through how to cut costs, they decided to withdraw the services that had been earlier arranged and carried out. This is quite disturbing because it seems like it's yes, we will, lots of things. No, we won't cut it all down. I believe that we need to follow this up. We need to negotiate with them, particularly because we have larger communities now that can use the buses. But the whole issue, I believe, needs to be discussed, considered. What does the community really want? In order that we're going to avoid the bus companies simply losing money because they'll say we are justified. My suggestion is perhaps this could go under the Environmental Committee. Okay, right. Well, the other suggestion is that Councillor Montague, when it's a bit better, and myself follow through and see what could happen.
Thank you, Councillor.
A number of points. Firstly, we'll probably discuss under item 13 how we take on strategic issues. Just in terms of practicalities, I'm being a transport planner and knowing connected services, which is what we talked about. Sadly, the local authorities do not own or influence bus companies. They are purely commercial. They make commercial decisions, and if something's not working, they will withdraw that. I do know, I've been talking to senior management of Connected at the time. I used to get the bus in every day. They did not want to lose that breath, but the service level just wasn't there with the customers. So they tried, it didn't work. It's a product of supply and demand, and the demand's there, they'll supply. So what I would not support is you and Councillor Montague individually talking to the bus companies, because I think that needs to be a county-council match, including Brecklin and as a whole council's got a strategic view. In terms of this one, the particular issue you're talking about of complaints, I see no reason why we can't write to First Bus. I suspect they've got driver issues like every other operation. It's probably just a quirk in the system. I don't certainly want to be doing this because this is their only route. It's the only bus company serving that. So do note the concern. Buses do get cancelled or don't turn up periodically for a number of reasons, breakdowns or drivers. But going forward, I think it's a wider discussion when we do look at models for delivery and how we take strategic transport forward. Not actually part of that discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor and Councillor Westby.
Yeah, I actually had a lady call me the later part of last week about the same topic, about buses generally. She lives on New Road, I believe. And herself, she's 81, and she has friends, neighbours that are in their 90s, and they have to walk from New Road all the way down to Dodds Road to catch the bus, because that's their nearest, because they're on the Harpham Road side.
Can I butt in? No, because I've been dealing with
We can suspend.
do you know what, okay, if you want to put a motion that we can suspend standing orders
Yeah, only because I said I'd go back to her tomorrow with an answer, so I really want to.
for this item only.
Yes.
Okay, I'll second that. If we can have a show of hands from councillors to agree that, yes, then we can.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, for that. I can give you an update on that because the new bus stop in New Road has been up and running about 10 days now, and in London Road. And I was up there last week, and there was people waiting for the bus there. And people just walk at the bottom of Dodds Road now and pick the bus up there. So, I mean, the bus companies have done that. I remember when that planning application was on the corners at Harvest, opposite Rosecroft, they had to do provision for a bus stop. And same as the Taylor Wimpey one. There's 2 bus stops on that stretch of road. So they're up themselves.
So what do they go down Harpham Road, past Dodds Road, then up New Road,
Yes.
and then back up along into
Yeah.
town?
Back into the town.
Where,
We're
then
not one-
Springfields, don't they?
where do they stop exactly on New Road?
Right opposite,
Where-
this side of, near where the old Marisons was, just past that, before you turn into the Haverscroft, industrial use.
But on this side of the road where the housing is? Or on the same side of the road?
No,
Opposite the houses.
Opposite the
If they're
other
running
house.
round.
It's going round.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Clockwise.
I'll let
Just
her know.
past,
Jess,
just
so
past
she might have
Barley
missed it.
Way, just past Barley Way. You've got Barley Way on your right, and it's just past there, just before the Haverscroft Industrial there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sorry.
Sorry
Councillor
about
Westby,
that.
you had
That's
a-
okay. Yeah, couple of points. I mean, I agree with Councillor Tyler, the bus service isn't a service, it's a commercial operation. It should be a service, but it isn't. The buses go past my house every half an hour and they're virtually always empty. So I'm amazed that they sustain a half-hour service, but it'd be criminal if they didn't. But just specifically on the cancelled buses, I did believe I read on somewhere in the paper or on social media that there were planned cancellations because of driver shortages and fuel shortages as well. Obviously that's all gone now, but I think there's still issues with driver shortages. So
Yes, thank you, councillor Tyler.
So can I just make one final comment, which is more positive and productive one? If we write to highways and ask them to redesign bus stops on London Road, because effectively what we've got is grass verge from the highway to the footpath. And then anyone wanted to get on the bus has to walk across grass verge. Now, one, you won't want to be doing that in winter when it's fully wet, and secondly, if you're disabled, if you're a wheelchair user or you've got a buggy, you don't want to do that either. So it should be hard standing and a raised curb like elsewhere. So obviously highways have mismanaged the design of that. Can we contact them to rectify it accordingly?
Just so we don't get too lost in the conversation, because we are touching on tangents now. Just to touch our point, our council is happy for us to approach highways on that particular point. So not a heads, yes, it's contacting, yes, we're okay on that. We can communicate back to the individuals involved, but recently they've changed that so there's more pickup points. We can communicate that is now better. We can also communicate back to Councillor Montague as well. There were planned cancellations.
I believe so, yeah.
I'm not a fan of writing letters to individuals or to groups complaining about something when they are working hard to resolve the matter. And I feel that that may be antagonising a situation when we are relying on the charity, on the goodwill of them for this half-hour civic service that we are benefiting from at the moment.
Just one little thought, that we need to think outside of the box. For example, there could be a service, a regular service that goes to Wyndham and goes to Attleborough, a kind of round Circle One is at Wyndham. One can pick up the Norwich, but that's just an idea. But I believe that we need to think with the bus company, what would be the most appropriate route that is going to attract people?
That is certainly something that will be discussed. I think a little higher up the food chain that we potentially could be part of the conversation of, in light of the increased developments going in the community, that public transport will be one of those discussions.
It is being looked at.
That is being looked at, so yes, and that kind of comes under item 13. But as far as this recommendation goes, personally, this is my opinion, you may have a different one. I don't feel that we write a letter complaining about something under these circumstances, particularly in light of how it's changed since. That's my feeling. Councillors, do you agree with that? Yeah? Okay, thank you very much. Item 10E. And this is to do with a new trustee for the Attleborough Town Lands Charity. And whilst it does not necessarily need to be a councillor, I know that in the past it has been. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this before I share mine. Everybody has a particularly strong opinion on it. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I actually think that it would be quite nice if it wasn't a councillor, if we didn't make an appointment tonight, and that maybe if we just helped to promote that there was a position for them, and if it was a member of the public, only because I think sometimes when it's councillor, like I know if anything come up or if anything come up with the land charities, myself will feel like as trustees would probably declare an interest in these items, whereas I think actually if it was not a councillor, then they wouldn't have to. I don't know, I just think it'd be nice if we gave the community an opportunity.
Councillor.
I'm unaware of how active the land trustees in Attleborough, but in the place that I lived previously, they were very active, and I know they can do some good stuff. So I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Taylor that it might be nice for somebody not on the council to take on this role and then report back to us.
That's, yeah, it's along the lines that I have. I think sometimes as councillors that we can be a little too possessive over things. It's nice to empower the community. There's a lot of good people out there that are willing to do these sort of things, but perhaps have the time and disposition to do it better than we do. So it would need to be appointed in my reading office from the town council and would need to be reported back to the town council. However, it doesn't necessarily need to be the council.
I'm afraid I'm rather ignorant of what is the Attleborough land charity, please.
Okay, there are a number of sites within the community which are, if I'm right in saying this, and someone put me right if I'm saying it wrong, are under this charity. The guardianship and the running and the care of it is under this charity. Yeah. Decoy Common is one example. That is, and we've got representatives from other people in the community that are part of this committee. But there is a vacancy now from the town council's representative.
That to me suggests it's good if the council does have some kind of representation on it.
Okay.
I'm actually the rep on one of the council reps on the land charities, so I attend all their meetings and deal with the emails in between. You know.
So
Thank you.
we already had a district and town councillor on there. I feel this vacancy, a member of the community would be very good because we can sometimes become a little stale in these chambers. And it's nice to have somebody with a bigger scope to look at it. So shall we advertise this and make a decision previous later?
Yeah.
Is that the decision for us to make as a council?
I would make that proposal, but I do think as well, while we're going through this process, we should also obviously just out of your politeness keep them informed as well.
Yes.
So make them aware that this is the resolution and this is what we plan to do. and just, do you know what I mean, so that with their agreement, that's how we do it.
Did you want to make a proposal as well, councillor Taylor, as you phrase it?
Yeah, so my proposal would be that we advertise this position for a member of the community to fill, with the agreement of the land charities to do so.
Second,
Seconded by councillor Dale. Show of hands for approval. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay.
I'm leaving the room, but I am coming back.
Thank you, councillor. Okay, item number 11, which is the rent review. There was some information in your packs, but before I go into that, because it generated so much, shall we say, media interest following our last meeting on this subject. Not good in media interest, nor would I say particularly accurate or thoughtful media interest. But nonetheless, it created a series of Chinese whispers. I just wanted to go on record tonight to make a statement. And if you'll just allow me the privilege of saying something as a councillor and the person who presented the report at the last meeting, this is a statement that I'd like to just correct and set the record straight as it were. That following last month's full council meeting, there have been a number of inaccurate reports being circulated about the Ashford Town Council property tenancy reports and related discussions. To clarify, the purpose of the report was to evidence the need for the Town Council to address historic tenancy agreements issues in an open and transparent manner. The Council agreed to conduct a tenancy review and instruct an independent valuation to form the basis of discussions on how we resolve these issues. Additionally, there are a number of comments made by councillors which are based on incorrect information or assumptions. These comments were not representative of the Town Council. I've asked councillors to be measured in making public comments, particularly as rash statements can cause harm to individuals, organisations, businesses, and ultimately our community, for which I apologise. In the hope of addressing these comments, I would like to state the following. Perhaps most importantly, it is the Council's responsibility to ensure appropriate lease agreements are in place, not tenants. The Council has failed to review rental terms, and it is not the responsibility of tenants to instruct such reviews. Following legal counsel, tenants whose lease agreements have expired have not been issued invoices by the Council, as it could prejudice any future legal agreements. Comments on potential eviction were wholly inappropriate, as the Council has not performed its due diligence or formally held discussions with existing tenants as part of the tenancy agreement. The Scouts were granted free rent for the first 3 years in 1991, with the Council to review the rental terms after this. No review was carried out by the Council, nor has any further agreement been made, as the legal document proposed by the Council renewal was not updated with appropriate modern terminology. The Scouts have maintained the grounds and buildings. The bar lease to Adam Kelsey was approved by the Council in May's 2017's meeting. Discussions with MB3 for the sale of the land and uses for car park installed because of the Council failing to pursue further discussions. And the football club marks the lines themselves on the grounds with their own equipment and material. Yeah. Please can I ask councillors, tenants and the public for patience while we seek to resolve this difficult issue in an appropriate manner. I just found it was appropriate to say this and just to quell the Chinese whispers a little bit, you know. What we're meant to be discussing here is solutions to these difficult issues. I knew when I became mayor, we had some issues. I was not always aware of how many I was delving into, but part of our root and branch review of the council operations has revealed a few that we've worked through, a few that have been made public as well. this thankfully is the last, I would say, of the significant ones. Whilst the other ones, we are actively working through already. So this is something we are working on. With that said, and in line with the agenda item itself, you will see that we have been out to tender for a number of quotations for this independent valuation, which will form the basis on the ongoing discussions for lease renewals and reviews. You will see that we've only had one come back. However, because it's an amendment and a correction of the previous review that was instructed in 2019, 2020, the cost for this is coming in around about, well, it is coming in at £375, which under the circumstances is probably the most expedient and the most cost-effective way of us moving forward with this. If you've got any questions, yes, Councillor Lane.
I think that we still should get 3 quotes, because I think we shouldn't rush this too much. It's important for the sake of the electorate that we do the job well, and to actually go based. My understanding is the reason we've only had this one quote in is because we were asking for the quotes to come in fast, and maybe that was a mistake to ask for the time scale. Wasn't that the companies couldn't do it in the time scale that we were recommending, but now thinking about it, I think we really should have 3 quotes, because the other thing is this company did this work a couple of years ago and we haven't really acted on it. Are we sure that they're saying they've done some of the work, but you know, we could end up that there's more work needs doing. And I just think from a point of transparency that we should consider 3 separate quotes from 3 separate companies.
Yeah, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the phrase, I just wanted to go back to what you just said, and I'm glad that the first couple of points that you had raised, because I don't actually think they were things that come out of the meeting. I think they were things that were Chinese whispered after the meeting. I don't think anyone actually said those during the meeting. The only thing I am going to say in relation to obviously the comment about eviction, stuff like that, obviously got a lot of attention, is that I know you've said that you think it's inappropriate. I think that actually the reason why this table is to give my opinion. That's why we're here as councillors. That's why there's 15 of us. And actually, I stand by it. That was my opinion then, and it still is now. So I just wanted to clear that up.
You're entitled to your opinion,
Thank you.
Councillor Taylor. On a personal point, my opinion on this, I like to have facts and evidences before making statements.
Oh, actually, on that, it actually says here that none of the tenants were met as part of the tenancy review. But it was my understanding, having spoken to you prior to the meeting, that you have had discussions.
We have had discussions. Okay, but it wasn't in a formal manner, just to clarify. Yes.
Can I just say something about your apology? That didn't come out in any of the paperwork. Personally, I didn't know what statement you were going to make, so I couldn't make any comment on it before it was made here. And that's about being open and transparent. If you're going to make a statement, we need to sit by them.
Okay. Point noted. On the matter at hand, Councillor Tyler.
I hear what Councillor Lane is saying about quotes. We've had this in the past and professionally, Andy and others. You do endeavour, and the policy of the council is to endeavour to get 3 quotes if possible. There's a lot of pressure in the industry generally where people are just turning work away to say visit. And we could endeavour to get 3 more quotes, extended the net wider. There's no guarantee we'll get 3 quotes. And we just, you know, it's another month and it's another month. So I hear what you say. If it was something significant, like a major project or a huge investment, absolutely. But I think this is something that's relatively straightforward. We follow council's procedures. So, you know, delaying it, I'm happy to go with both. But that's just factual information in terms of how the industry is working at the moment. I'm sure Councillor Westby can
Councillor Westby, and then Councillor Smith, Councillor West.
I agree with Councillor Tyler entirely. I mean, I know from my professional position that, you know, work comes in thick and fast and you have to be very judgmental about what you take on and what you don't take on to offer a service. We're talking about procuring quotes, not actual valuations. We're looking at quotes for doing the work. Whether that comes, you know, the disparity that might occur through going for one quote and you might get one that's 200 quid cheaper. The scope of what you're looking at there is fairly minimal. I think as professional bodies, they're all going to come up with pretty much the same rates. I don't think there's going to be any massive difference there. You know, you're not going to employ company A and they're going to come up with something that's significantly different to what company B or C might come up with.
Thank you. And I think it's also noted that with that value, it's in the discretionary spending part of our financial terms and policies, which doesn't even require a tender process, to be honest. Councillor Smith and Councillor Russ.
Just section 4 of the quote that we have
Yeah.
mentions that it's a desktop exercise with no property inspections being carried out.
Yeah.
Is that sufficient? I'm asking somebody who might have more knowledge about this than I am.
Having looked at the information that I had provided previously, I would say yes. It was the overall conclusions from the information that was given to them prior to it that skewed the original report, so it couldn't really be used as a viable tool. But the actual visitation of the site and the descriptions and the information they had about the site was wholly accurate. Councillor Rusk.
I've been thinking of the matter from the viewpoint of the tenants, and knowing how that voluntary organisations are very, very nebulous and whisper, 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 I believe it is necessary to get 2 or 3 clear quotes from independent professional people as to what the rents should be. That will stop rumours, it will stop publicity in the press, and it will make sure in the public eye that we're being as fair as we can be.
That's not what's actually in front of us, Councillor Rusk. Councillor Rusk, we're asking for one independent person to do it. What you're proposing is 3 separate independent people be commissioned to find reports. So that isn't actually what's been in front of us.
Yeah, this is what I propose, that there is more than one professional person does the assessment.
They will use the same index because that is part of the standard terms.
Maybe.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, all I was going to say is with reference to the point that Councillor Andy Smith just raised about them not coming out and actually doing a site visit, that in the tender notice is under the specification that would be a requirement. I don't know if there's any.
They have actually,
So
because they have already previously done such, it qualifies. Because they have done site visits, they've got all the photographic evidence of done site, having done so, and all of the measurements and all the details of the site. So it is effectively, these people have done that already.
And relatively recently.
It's relatively recently, it's within 18 months. So it would certainly qualify for that tender process. Okay. The way I feel about this, rather than spoil it too much, and I know the points that have been raised, we are not going to find a quotation, in my opinion, that is going to beat the £375 there, because as was noted by Councillor Taylor, any other firm coming to do this job would subsequently have to visit the sites themselves to do so, which would then put the price up significantly from that which you have in front of you. So the best value is already in front of you. Having paid for and commissioned this work once as a town council, we are asking that it has relevant information updated to this year's index or to the relevant latest index for valuations, and with the correct information for that valuation to be seen by the council. So that's why it's come out at significantly less than when they originally done this, which was in the order of £1,500 to £1,800, which was kind of the ballpark of what you would be looking for future quotations. Because this comes under discretionary spending as well, and does not have to go through the same tender process that we do through the financial restrictions and policies we've agreed, I would propose that we accept the £375 to move the progress forward. It is an independent valuation, it is indexed, it has relevant information, it has accurate information. That is what we need to move forward. If anybody would like to, yes, second, can we have a show of hands for approval, please? Any opposed? That's 3 opposed, so the motion is carried. Thank you. Yes. That's councillor Bowles' return. Thank you, councillor. Item 12, the new websites. We have in this case, we do have the quotations back in response to the requests that made out. Does anyone have any questions, comments on this? Councillor Smith.
Of the 3 quotes,
Yeah.
all of them mention hosting at a similar price.
Yes.
One of them, so I just need to find it. The second quote includes hosting and managing the site for that approximately £30 per month. The other 2 quotes appear to be that we would have to manage it. But quote, am I allowed to mention the company?
You are, yes.
Yes. So the quote from Design by Creative mentions hosting and managing £30 per month. What level of management? What will they do in comparison to what the others will do for their monthly fee?
I think it's a terminology thing, because the management in which you're talking about there is actually managing the coding on that is kept up to date. It's free of bugs and glitches and everything else, so it's hosted correctly. As somebody who understands the terminology, including programming myself, I know what they mean by that. It's to put in a different terminology by another one. If you look at the one from Fluffy Egg, and you'll see that they put a lifetime warranty included, covers fixes to any bugs in the original code for the lifetime of the site. So effectively make sure that it's runnable on the latest browsers and everything else, and make sure that it's applies to everything else.
What level of training will be provided that would allow staff to update?
Okay. To be fair, these are all done on the WordPress system. I'm really having experience using WordPress. It's not particularly a hard portal to use, and anybody who can use word processor can use WordPress. That's the whole point of that. There is training provided in the one I just mentioned. Training is not mentioned, I can see in the second one, and I think the first one. I can't remember this. It was charged. Where was it? Yes, I mentioned it.
So Design by do offer some free support, but if we get stuck with no specific training, Fluffy Egg are the only people that do a training package, I believe. I don't think there's one going to.
But the expense to give a monthly hosting fee that I can see.
Yes.
Can I just ask what the difference is between these and something like Wix?
To do something on Wix, you've actually got to devote a fair bit of time to get it actually where we want it to. Having used Wix myself for that one or two sites, the complexity of the site is more than I would say within the scope of staff or councillors to provide.
What Wix?
Yes.
Okay.
Because of the archive ability that we have to have as a council, that I've tried and it's not readily available upon the website. So,
Okay.
to link in the way that it is. Okay.
Fine, I just use it for offering, and it's fine. And I know lots of other parish councils use it, and it's a lot cheaper.
Any thoughts? Any more questions? Does anybody have a preference on the quotations?
All the parts of training.
That's
exactly-
my preference too.
Yeah, that's what you,
Yeah.
that Fluffy, what's his name? Fluffy,
Despite the name.
yeah, Fluffy egg, yeah.
Yeah, that is my preference too, having looked at this.
Have they specified what the training is? Because training is a very vague term.
Says how to use content management systems so the client can edit and update content themselves. The basic training. Isn't it?
Yeah, it will be the WordPress portal system that they get training so that they can do so.
In person.
Pardon?
In person.
It doesn't specify.
Yeah, I just think
Does it
that's a-
specify?
I specifically like the bit where they say estimated time frame 3 to 4 weeks. They're saying they'd have it up and running in 3 to 4 weeks.
The information that we provided them was quite detailed, and the design brief was actually well done in the sense that for them to actually make that line, most of the work when you're developing the website, like anything else creative, is taken up in trying to understand what the client is saying to you and put it into something real terms that meets their expectations, shall we say. That's 80% of your job when you're programming and designing stuff. Thankfully, the work that has been conducted by the council prior to this has done that work for them. So they have detailed content with design ready to go. So it is just a programming element of bringing those together to make it a functional website. So the brief was quite tight and detailed. So those are the quotations before us and the options that we have as a council. Does anybody want to propose that we approve Fluffy Egg? Councillor Lane, do a second after that. Councillor Ellison, show our hands for approval. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Item number 13. Following the AMP's meeting, there was a motion passed at the AMP meeting that we will be presented to full council a recommendation to dissolve the AMP committee and to reinstate the environmental committee, as well as to look at options for a new delivery method for the neighbourhood plan. To clarify that for those who weren't at our meeting, it was splitting those two elements within the neighbourhood plan that were competing for time and resources, shall we say, not always compatible. The environmental committee would be regarding those matters of property, land, environmental concerns that the town council has within its scope to make decisions on. So, for instance, if we were going to talk about bike racks, it's within the scope and the land and opportunity to do that. If we are going to talk about the parks that run or the properties that run, it's within the scope. If it's community things that are within our gift to approve and support, it's within the scope of the environmental committee, which allows that those local matters, which were becoming a little overlooked because we were focusing on the more, so we say, the wider reaching neighbourhood plan aspirations and visions that were adopted in the planning policy in regards to the Sue or the 1,200 houses and other developing sites. They were very much starting to compete with one another and affect the effectiveness of the AMP committee. So, in addition to this, it was to look at the options for a new delivery system on those aspirational things that are outside the direct responsibility and authority of the town council, and working with key stakeholders to see what form that could take. There have been a few ideas mooted at the AMP meeting, members will be familiar with. But it is to explore those options going forward. So we'll split this up into various parts. But before I do, actually, any questions, queries, comments on this? Councillor Busk.
One of the points that has been discussed in the past is that the council, this new arrangement, will not become a bureaucracy inviting and different organizations coming in, so that the whole thing is like a cat getting hold of a ball of string. What I'm anxious about is that there is an entrepreneurial spirit in which there is that determination to move forward, not only in an ideology point of view, but in a practical point of view.
In fact, that's at the very heart of the reason we're looking at this. The AMP was not delivering the aspirations of what we'd hoped the AMP was doing. So what we're doing is, or what we've done, if you're taking a step back, we've split into the various components that we need to deliver and how's the best mechanisms for doing so. The Environmental Committee, and if you've had a look at the draft terms of reference for the Environmental Committee, which we'll discuss in just a moment, sees the best approach to keep it clear as to what we're discussing in that relevant meeting and giving us the best hope of delivery. Those matters of which we have prime responsibility and authority to deal with, we will discuss in the Environmental Committee. Those matters where it isn't within our authority to make decisions on, but we would like to influence and affect our community, we need a different mechanism outside of the Environmental Committee to discuss that with key stakeholders and partners are moving forward. So this is really split into two parts. One, reinstate the Environmental Committee for that purpose and explore the options for the other. Yes,
Thank you.
Just to comment on what you just said there, Mr. Busk, one of the delivery models we are looking at, which basically started this conversation, the need to have the conversation about the AMP, is very challenging, it's very aspirational, it's very forward thinking, and the core of it is leadership. And it's a national model with key influencers involved. So totally agree with what you say. That's the challenge we are giving to our colleagues and stakeholders as well, as to this is where we want it to go. This is the example of what sustainable development in the future looks like, and we'd like to be part of it. We'd like people to come on board. So hence, the reason of what we were currently doing was not working for many reasons. It was getting mixed up with smaller projects that really should go elsewhere with other people involved in, and get people around the table collectively, collaboratively to deliver. So that's where
Sorry, I'll let Councillor Lane answer first. Ladies first.
Thank you. Well, what I was going to ask was, I was going to put forward a proposal that we disband the AMP committee, because I think that needs to be formally done. But after hearing what Councillor Tyras just said, I'd like to ask who the we is, who are what we want to do. You said what we want to do is this initiative. I don't think we've discussed it as a full council yet. You're saying
no, I think discussions around it. I'm not saying any particular model. Right. What I am saying, we collectively, and people I talk to the community and even around this table in the past and recently, is we do want to do more.
Yeah, we do want to do more, but we haven't actually had discussions about specific things.
No, I'm not saying there is one, and neither am I alluding to the fact that it is going to be one. What I'm saying is, I believe there is that. The years with the AMP, and there are people here who do want to be challenging, who do want to have things on the town. That's what the community have said. That's why we did the neighbourhood plan. So when I say that we, it's that collective, and it's not a decision's already been made and shared.
Okay. Councillor first.
In other words, it is Attleborough focus, but a global involvement in which Attleborough decides who would be most helpful in developing the town of Attleborough.
I agree with you to the last line. It isn't entirely our decision. We aren't the planning authority. Reckland are the planning authority. They are the ones who make the decisions. We are looking to establish relationships and able to steer things with them. So it's a more of a partnership that we're looking to do on those things that are not strictly our responsibility to be directly making decisions on. However, we have worked with the community hard to be a voice of the community and engage the community. And there's several members of the community that have given their all to feed into this process. This is the best opportunity for us to deliver the neighbourhood plan, which is a planning document. It is a reference document. What this does, it gives us an opportunity to make it a living document, something where we can deliver on, or the best chance of delivering on the aspirations of those plans that we put together. It becomes real, rather than just words that are referenced every time the plan application comes in. That's the difference. We want to give the neighbourhood plan a little bit more a scope for delivery, and that is currently being exercised.
Thank you.
Can we take this one step at a time? I think we need to first of all disband the AMP committee. I think we then need to look at whether we're going to have an environment committee, and we need to then look at how we are going to implement the neighbourhood plan. And can we try not to cross over?
Yeah, we can do that. I just wanted to give councillors an opportunity to raise questions. Just to raise discussion before we formalise this process. But if there's no more comments, we will go to that process of formalising this. So the first thing that is before us is to dissolve the AMP, which is a decision for the council to make. So the proposal is by Councillor Tyra, and I will second that. If we can have a show of hands for approval to dissolve the AMP, that has been carried. The next proposal, as you rightfully say, is to establish an environmental committee. Now, we can do so with the terms of reference before us as a motion. So we will establish an environmental committee with the terms of reference that are before us. Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I propose that, and also obviously within the terms of reference, at least 5 councillors need to be appointed.
At least 5 councillors need to be appointed, which will be the following motion should it be carried. So there is a proposal by Councillor Taylor. If anyone would like to second that, Councillor Lane, and a show of hands for approval. Unanimous. Now that we have appointed or established the environmental committee, I know it's a bit long-winded, we need 5 representatives from the town council.
Just a point of clarification, is that 5 plus mayor and deputy mayor?
No, that'll be 5 including, but it's a minimum of 5. So if any other members still wanted to put themselves forward or nominate themselves, then they could.
No, it's useful.
Yes. So is that taken that we would naturally be on them? Just to clarify, okay.
So we need at least 3
At
others,
least 3
but
others.
as many as would like to.
Can I just say before we start nominating or whatever, I think it would be really good to have a lot more than 5, because it's such a massive, covers such a big remit that rather than it all falling on the shoulders of just, if we knock you 2 out of the equation sort of thing, that's it, that only leaves 3 councillors, doesn't it? I'm not saying, you know what I mean?
No offense taken. You can do more than that, don't worry.
I'm just saying it would be good if there were more than.
I completely agree. The way I feel about this, we have a minimum requirement to meet the terms, but there is no maximum specified. I feel if you have a passion to deliver within the environmental committee, you're welcome. I wouldn't like to see an exclusion of councillors who feel that they've got something to offer into this committee, but it does need to be approved by the council for the appointment. So there will need to be a proposer, a seconder, and an approval by the councillor for those appointments. as per normal practice. Okay? So don't be shy. If you would like to. So Councillor Taylor, we'll work our way through around the table. Councillor Taylor, are you saying that you would like to be on the environmental committee?
Very much so.
I know you would be. But
I'll
was
second.
so that is a proposal and a second. If we get a vote for approval, please. Any opposed? No, that is unanimous. Councillor Taylor, there's one appointed to the committee. Councillor Westby, you would also.
I would, yes, please.
Okay, fair enough. Seconded by Councillor Tyler. On those that approve.
Would it be easier just to find out who doesn't want
We have to do this. We have to do it the right way. So that's been carried also. Councillor Lane.
Yes, I'd like.
Seconded by Councillor Westby, and a show of hands for approval. Approved. What I will say on this is it is one of the most important things that we all want to be involved in the sense. So yes, I can understand it. Councillor Ellis.
Yes.
You would like to, Councillor Lane, the seconded that, and a show of hands for approval. I don't think there's a fear of the quorum. Okay, so that's been approved as well. Councillor Buss, you would like to as well. Does anyone want to second Councillor Buss? Councillor Lane, and a show of hands for approval. Okay, that is being carried. Councillor Smith.
Yes, please.
Okay. This is going Councillor Taylor to second, and a show of hands for approval. We may as well just set the main council meeting, just hold the meeting. However, this will have a specific brief and needs to be met, so yes. Councillor Marsh.
Yes, please.
Okay. Second by Councillor Smith, and a show of hands for approval. That has been approved. You can approve yourself as well. Councillor Down.
Having sat through all those AMP meetings and nothing's happened, yes, please.
Second by Councillor Marsh, and a show of hands for approval. Thank you. Okay, that's a big committee, but it has a big mandate. There's lots to do. What I would recommend at your first meeting, if we call it in place of the week that we would hold the meeting for the AMP, which is the third week of the month, third Monday of the month, to replace the AMP Monday. The councillors, do you approve that? You happy with that? Okay. The election of the chair will take place. Okay, I won't be putting my name forward, don't you?
Hang on, so what date are you talking about doing this then?
It'll be the 13th.
The 15th.
Yes.
Yes, in place of the AMP.
In place of the AMP, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
In place of the AMP, you'll elect a chair and deputy as per the normal instructions.
No.
You're going to have a big mandate. You're going to have a lot of things to get on with.
If someone's gonna let the others know, like ATC and.
Yes,
Because they all tip up.
yes. If we can let the other members of the AMP meeting know that as well.
Yeah.
That's good, Prince. Thank you for raising that. Okay. Right. I know that some of the projects that we were going to do for the AMP, such as the Wheel Park, London Road, and one or two of them come under that mandate will be transferred over. Committee members, are you happy for us to transfer those projects as live projects into the environmental group? Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to lose momentum on that work which has already been done. Okay? And I should also mention Decoy Common. Those three particularly.
Yeah.
Okay? Right. The next part of this is looking at the options for the delivery mechanism. There have been discussions ongoing that myself and Councillor Tyler have had with Homes England, with Bretland and other key organisations. Nothing is set in stone yet, but the discussions are continuing. May I suggest that we are assigned to continue those discussions and make representations for the council as we move those projects forward. Councillor Bear.
There's the two of you.
Yes.
Do you think you need a third in case one of you can't?
I was
make
going
it?
to suggest that as well, because One of those things is sometimes I can't always make a meeting
No.
or it through commitments.
Yeah.
It's always nice to have someone
Mhm.
covering your back in those meetings. I'm not
Yes.
going to say more, but
No,
it's nice to have a witness by you. And I would suggest, and I was going to ask Councillor
Councillor
Westby, who has expertise in the fields of which we're having discussions to do with planning.
sorry.
everything else, to be part of the privy of that, because they do get very technical conversations. And if you're able to speak the lingo and understand the terms that are going forward, it is a tremendous help to you.
Mhm.
And it creates confidence as well, because the organisations know that you know what we're discussing and have confidence that you understand what's being discussed. So, yes, Councillor.
Can I just add the town clerk will also be involved?
Yes, yes.
So it's not just.
No, there is,
And that is absolutely a mandate.
oh, yes.
And I would also ask, as part of this approval, that we have formally let Breckland Council know, by a letter from the
Yes.
town council, that these are who have been appointed as the representation for these discussions going forward. Just so it's formalised.
Mhm.
Okay, Councillor Lane.
First of all, would it be possible for the head of Breckland to perhaps come and talk to us as a full council about the way they see Ashborough going forward? Because whilst I trust you to represent us, it would be nice to hear from their end and perhaps from Norfolk's end the way they see us moving forward. And I think it would be, I would feel more comfortable about delegating responsibility to named councillors to represent us if I knew from the other side the way they saw us as a town and what their plans in their little minds are moving forward. Because I just think if we're at the moment, we're entrusting you to discuss something that we're not quite sure what's coming back the other way. And I don't think it would hurt for them to make representation here to us as full council, considering the development that's about to happen in the town. I think they owe us that to come and have a chat with us if, you know, the head.
That can certainly be part of the letter that we put together as part of this, that we ask.
That we ask.
Yeah.
I mean, we have our district councillors here.
Yeah.
We very rarely see our county councillor, and I think it would be nice if they came and spoke to, maybe in public forum with the public here as well, to discuss, you know, the way where they see Attleborough in their long-term development, and then we have a better understanding. Because at the moment, I'm being totally honest, and you know I'm always honest, I'm uncomfortable because don't quite know where, after the last AMP meeting, where Breckland are on this, where Norfolk are on this, and it's, you know, I'd like to have them in front to ask for us all to be able to ask questions.
Which is really why diplomacy, we need representation made at the council. So this allows us to have those discussions,
Totally agree.
which they don't want. They have expressed this, they don't want in public at this stage.
Well, we're discussing it in public, aren't we?
We're discussing about making representation, but we aren't talking about the form of the body that should be made or agreed to, because they've asked us not to formally discuss that yet.
Well, my understanding is that they won't be formally discussing that until possibly in the new year. And as we, as councillors, the rest of us, other than you guys.
Sorry, where did you get that information from? If you don't mind?
Well, this is what's being said on the grapevine. So therefore, we're now in a November meeting. Our next meeting would be December. We are being asked to formalise, in effect, a small working party to go ahead and make discussions on our behalf to Breckland. And I don't actually know what you're going to be asking them, although we're all agreed on what we want. Yeah, we know what way we want to go forward.
It's simply discussions on creating a body that helps coordinate our efforts more unilaterally. So it's kind of united, bringing us together. So we're working together on projects, and we have an understanding.
Which is
a communication
yes,
system.
which is absolutely fine.
Exactly it.
But the last AMP meeting, we were given a presentation on the 20-minute neighbourhood and this, you know, Is this what you're discussing with them?
No,
Or is
that's
it,
not the
do you
proposal.
see where I'm coming from?
That's not the proposal that's in front of us.
And where does the AMP or the, fit into these proposals that you put? Because ultimately, what we should be sitting here now discussing is how we implement the AMP, and that has to be the most important thing at the moment. So whilst long term, we should have, and I'm amazed there isn't already some system in place where we all sit around the table for all development discussions, not just the small one we're talking about now, the 1,400 houses. I feel there should be something larger, but we have to get the AMP moving forward. And
Which is why this
plan.
motion has to carry through if you want that, because we won't be able to form that without this representation.
So have we been told that unless we pass this motion this evening, that discussions won't be able to take place?
We have been, I'm being careful because last time they disclosed more information than they should have done. I had to apologise for it. Brecon Council have asked us that we have discussions about forming a working steering group to move this forward, so we get that very communication. And it's the initial stages of that we're discussing. We need to have an initial working communication group to move forward, and that's what we're discussing the representation.
But aren't you doing that already?
Not formally, no. Sorry.
But I think it's turn first, and I've got comments too.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you go first, Ed. You go first.
Okay, I think, obviously you're entitled to your own views and opinions, and think decisions are already being made, and you've got specifically how things should work with all that. The AMP has not worked as it stood in terms of a delivery mechanism. What I've been looking at, I'll stop using the word we, because obviously it's getting us into trouble. What I've been looking at professionally as well is how do we create a delivery mechanism that one delivers the neighbourhood, delivers the aspirations of the community, and makes this a better place to live, work, leisure, socialise, and is future-proof against COP26. What we're proposing is to investigate what's the most appropriate delivery mechanism for Attleborough. That includes Brecon, the County Council, the Health Authority, the Education Authority, Social Services, the Emergency Services, voluntary groups, charity, you name it. Is we need to sit around the table and say, okay, where do we go from here? What kind of delivery body is this going to be? And it'll have to be a partnership, it'll have to be a collaboration. To do that, it's a lot of hard work because key stakeholders will have their own aims and objectives. And as you said, what's the view of Brecon, what's the view of County? Absolutely, we need to understand what is it you're in for, what are the developers in for, what do they want? So all we're asking for is the ability to have those discussions, and some of them may well have to be confidential, because this is how these things work sometimes. This body will not have decision-making powers at all. So we're not going away saying, right, we'll do that. On behalf of the Town Council, we agree this. We can't do that in any shape, way, or form. What it is, the ability to sit around the table with those people, with those actors, to say, where are we going to go over the next 5, 10, 15, 50 years? What does that delivery mechanism look like? What's the input? How's it going to work? What's the representation? And all we're asking for is the ability to meet those people and start that discussion process. Obviously, when things start forming and there's something there, then certainly come back to the council and say, this is where the discussion's at, this is what it's looking at, these are the implications, these are the pros, these are the cons. But we're nowhere near yet. I'm interested to hear about the things, something's happening in January, which there's no time scale. Can I just finish? There's no timescales on this, other than things that are happening on the ground, need to be equipment. Homes England are requesting strong collaboration with us and with others, but there's nobody to do that. Anybody in terms of a formation to do that. That works to a degree in the short term. Longer term, it doesn't. So that's the proposal on the table of can we go, can we talk to people? On the proviso, we have no decision-making bodies. We are totally open-minded. And we come back and we feed those optioneering, and it is optioneering at this stage, that's all it is. Of what's the best practice to deliver the AMP and deliver what we want to.
The only thing I can really say is that this is a request that's been put onto us by Homes England as part of the development to be part of these conversations of which we care so much about. And it has been a request that has come by an authority from council. So we are acting on what they've asked us to do as well. It isn't just
So they've asked you for a working party to go
they've
forward,
asked us for representation. So what
and that's come verbally or in writing.
that has come verbally.
That's right. So they've asked you verbally for representation from the full council to take discussions further on.
No,
Can I finish, please?
Sorry, beg your pardon.
To take discussions further on the setting up of a group to oversee the development of the town. This isn't specific to one project, is it? Or is this all, all future development in the town over the next 10 years? Or is this just specific to this one building project?
Yeah.
Just clarity, they've suggested we need some delivery mechanism for the Homes England over 1,200 houses.
So that's not the AMP project? No.
But which AMP project?
No, well, I'm talking about the overall AMP project. This what they're talking about is literally the Homes England project.
So for clarity, a discussion has been undertaken informally about, because Breckland had to deal with the Homes England application. So let's just focus on 1,200 houses.
Okay.
And they want to discuss a process and mechanism collaboratively to get those 1,200 houses up and running and away. That was the discussion. As part of that, it's obviously recognised that it's not going to stop at 1,200, it's 4,000, and there are other things that are happening. So the discussion touched on whatever body that is, would that be an appropriate body for the aspiration of the whole town? We don't know. But all it was we think, here's a suggestion, what do you think? That's as far as it went, and it is just focusing on those 1,200 houses. Now, either we can consider that and be involved, or we're not, and it's going to happen.
No.
So,
Can I just say, it was put to us at the AMP that unless we agreed to this, we wouldn't have a seat at the table. And that went into quite a long discussion about that's not actually what.
that's kind of where we are.
Yeah,
Well, no, we haven't been told what this actual committee is going to be. Of course, we want to be involved with Bracknell. Well, personally, I want to be involved with Bracknell. But what I'm saying is we need to just be careful that we are not being kept in the dark by not all of the councillors knowing everything that's going on, because we are a democracy. We should all know what's going on. There should not be discussions going on in private that we're not aware of. We should not be being represented by certain councillors in discussions that we aren't all in agreement of and behind. And we are behind this, this development of the town, we are behind, but we need to be kept informed. And I go back to my first point, I think it would be good for representatives from Breckland to come and talk to us as well, about the way they see this coming forward, and also from Norfolk, to actually show their face.
In due course, I think that'll be appropriate. I think, Deb, on that side of things, I've always been candid in this. We have private informal meetings as well, where I've given you a candid report on this. But it isn't something that I'm in a position where we can discuss publicly yet, because it is still very tentative and sensitive to the other parties. And when we say something, it has a negative effect of predetermining the actions of others. And we need to be very careful of that and try to avoid it at all costs. However, in private session, I'm very happy to disclose those things that I have done previously too. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if this working party or steering group is agreed, not by us, but further up the line, and there is representation that needs to be agreed, in case that is agreed, and in principle we need to make that decision. I was actually going to make the recommendation that it's the chair and deputy chair and the clerk potentially, just because I think the chair and deputy chair change and traditionally would flow through each other in a cycle, and then the clerk would be the constant. So that was the recommendation I was going to make. If in the terms of reference when they're presented, if there is terms of reference or whatever for us to agree at a later date, they say, well, actually, you know, if you want an extra seat at the table, you can have it, because I don't think that's a decision for the town council to make. If they give us the option further down the line to have an extra seat, then I think we can think about the appointment to that position. I think as a starting point to say, well, the chair and deputy chair and clerk should be making formal representations with regards to this. I think that'd be more appropriate.
Okay, your point.
Can I just add to that? In principle, I agree, but we're a long way off from that decision making at this stage. We're actually trying to find out what model do we all agree on, and what does that look like, and who would represent on it, and then we can bring it back to town council and say, does that meet our needs and our requirements? So I hear what you're saying.
Oh, sorry, no, I must be confused because I thought you were looking for representation tonight. I thought you were looking for an agreement to have these conversations,
Discussions about,
but not for appointment on the steering group.
No.
we don't know what, we don't know if it's a steering group or what kind of steering group.
Yes.
What we're trying to find out is what is that delivery mechanism,
Oh, that would be more
and we're just asking, would it?
Yeah,
Are the
it
council
says in this to look at options for a new delivery method for the neighbourhood plan. We're not saying this is representation.
okay,
to
no,
the steering
it's
group.
just because the
Yeah,
conversation has
sorry.
been so focused on this
No.
steering.
Yeah, no,
When obviously you've been saying you're looking for representation, because the conversation has been more focused on the steering
To-
group. I thought that's what you were looking for representation to.
It's,
not
it's
to-
as stated on here. We're looking that we can look at options going forward to bring back to council for approval.
and discuss with others of, you suggested this, okay, what's it look like, and come back to council.
Okay, yeah, no, I
Because
thought-
one, we don't know if there is going to be a steering group, what it's going to look like, or if it's appropriate. We need to engage in those discussions, and that's all we're asking for tonight.
Yeah, and I think appointing certain people for that at this stage is probably most appropriate, because then there's some certainty, because one thing that, you know, the chairs change, deputies chair, and, you know, they change. And I think that we need in these discussions at this stage some continuity and some understanding, and they need to have some trust in us that it isn't going to change back to perhaps the way it was before. So that continuity and trust, which has already been developed in large part from the discussions we've had to date, is allowed to continue. So that's what we're discussing. What's on the paperwork in front of you? And the proposal I'm putting before you is that myself, Councillor Tyra, Councillor Westby, and also our clerk, Michelle, can formally engage in the discussions to see what's to look at the options for a new delivery method for the neighbourhood plan and report back to council once we, with other partners such as Breckland, come to a consensus.
I'll second that, because if we don't move forward, we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
You're not making decisions, you're just investigating, as I see it.
That's it. But we didn't want to do this without the approval of council, because we are trying to get transparent.
Can I ask that you add on to that motion, then you report back at the next meeting? Any progress?
We can
Any,
report,
if you,
we will
if,
report, yes, we will.
if anything's
we
happened.
will report progress.
yeah, progress.
Okay. So that is a motion before us with the amendment, if agreeable to yourself as well,
Yeah.
the amendment.
Yes, I agree with the amendment.
Okay, then it's put to councillors for approval. And that's unanimous, thank you. Right, item 14, thank you for being patient. I was hoping to be done before that. Members of the public, if you've got any comments, yes.
I would like to, for once, I wasn't at the last meeting, but I'm led to believe from the YouTube that the councillors referred to Attleborough Scouts have not paid their rent for 30 years. It was then added that this is ruthless, they should be evicted. And another councillor agreed with them. The councillor's comments have damaged the good name of First Asborough Scouts. And these comments have gone worldwide. We've had an email back from Australia asking what's going on. Asborough First Scouts is a charity in its own right. It's allied to, but not part of, the National Scout Association. And as an unpaid volunteer, I take great exception to the verbal attack that was made by some councillors, in my opinion, misrepresenting the facts and tarnished my personal reputation as a trustee of at least 2 charities. Now, I am pleased that the chair has apologised for some of the issues, and I would like to see all the councillors apologise for the manner in which, or in order to correct, shall I say, the damage and allow me to move forward as a charity trustee.
Thank you. As chair, I can't instruct councillors to individually do so, but I will also offer my apologies. If councillors wish to do so, they can do so either privately or publicly at their discretion. I leave it for them to do so. That's all I'm going to do to interact.
Thank you.
Can I just echo that councillors are very welcome to have their opinion, but their opinion in the public domain. But when they're trying to put facts into the public domain, they should do their research thoroughly beforehand. And if they are then made aware they've made mistakes, they may be honest mistakes in claiming facts in the public domain, they are big enough to correct those mistakes in the same public domain.
You made a point well. Thank you. Yes.
I actually came here tonight to say we'd like to move forward with the council, to work with the council, so that we can all achieve our aims. I'm not sure that we can actually do that unless we do get that apology. But I'm quite happy to think there were misunderstandings to the facts, which I'm sure that's what it was.
Thank you. Sorry. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, so I feel like there could have been, yes, some misunderstanding. I'm not going to deny that. But and I don't mean to cause any individual any upset. Feel quite rightly pointed out, you know, it's our responsibility, but no rent has been paid in 30 years that I'm aware of. That still stands, but that's my understanding. And my understanding is that in 2016, a tenancy agreement was offered and rejected. It wasn't signed. So I still stand by my comments.
I will clarify that to Councillor Taylor. The tenancy agreement.
I've seen the correspondence, and
Yeah, the tenancy
I know
agreement.
why.
Yeah, it was rejected because the agreement that was put to them, as I made in the statement, did not have the required modern terminology for a document to be signed by any responsible tenant, which is a failing of the town council. And that is wholly
And I
honest.
understand that, but I don't think that's
And the
reasonable.
reason it has been sued is not the responsibility of Scouts, it's the responsibility of the town council. The reason that they have not paid rent is because even though the agreement said there will be a rent review after the first initial 3 years, no such rent review ever happened by the town council. It is the town council's responsibility to fulfill that if it requires it. You cannot expect an organisation to make up for the deficits of the owners of the land, the council in this case. And I think we need to be very careful and mindful of that.
Can I just respond and the comments made? Certainly as a council, we want to move forward because ultimately we want, as voluntary groups, community groups, what can we as a town council help you to, one, survive, but secondly, thrive. We want a growing community and an active community. And the role of the town council is merely what can we do to help in that, not hindrance it. I think I'd echo what the chair has said, and it's my views at the time of the meeting. As individual councillors, we have a duty, living on training. You're certainly welcome to express views. However, we all need to remind ourselves we need to be guided about what's factual and what's not factual. And there is libel that can be thrown around if necessary, if someone feels it's so threatening or what have you. And I would just urge fellow councillors, before we do make comments, that we know it could be inflammatory, it might cause an issue, that will go to the media. We think very carefully what we say and why we're saying it, and being able to back that up. That is slightly different from restricting personal views or comments, which we're all entitled to do around this table. However, we do have a duty about what we say and how we say it and how we perceive it's going to be received as well, I would suggest. So I would like to apologise what happened in that meeting as well. It wasn't great. The fallout's been enormous. I thought we got over those days 18 months ago. I don't see Asper in the media at all, except for good news. Let's just use this as a learning curve.
Councillors are mindful that this is public participation. So if there's any members of the public that want to make any more comments or raise any more questions to the council. Yes.
Getting away from that, Homes England, can I suggest that Councillor Leslie, Tara and Wesley look at Homes England website and see what they are. I don't feel that, without saying too much at the moment, because we haven't got the Environment Committee up and running, that they're more on the building of properties and not so much on sustainability for the residents. Something I think you need to look at the website. Maybe I've looked at their website and read it wrong, but they're driven by the government. They're independent, I know. They're driven by the government to concentrate on building. And that's what I got from it. Their policy is to get hold of as much land as possible and sell it to builders. And that's where it sort of stops. That's the way I read it, but I'll ask you to have a look at the website. And
sorry, Councillor Tyre is probably more qualified to answer that.
It's a fair comment. Homes England was set up to accelerate development where it's been stalled in the country, and it's been stalled in Africa for a long time. So hence the intervention of Homes England to accelerate that. Yes, they are there to build houses, but also because they're aligned with government, they are built and planned and developed in a more sustainable way than it was just a private developer. So there is scope within what their objective is to deliver those numbers, absolutely. But in a way that addresses the sustainability issues, good planning, community planning, everything else. So
that's not the way their website reads, but
yeah,
that's why I said that. Perhaps it might be nice to just have a look at it. The other thing is something for Councillor Bast. The bus that used to go down to Deptford and often there was another one that went on to Bury St Edmunds, was very well used. When it reduced the amount of usage was when a friend of mine, personal friend of mine who's no longer with us, actually managed to get the Cambridge train to stop at Ashford because it used to go from Wyndham to Deptford and then Cambridge. He fought hard to get it stopped, and of course more people used the train. That's why we lost the use of that. But it wouldn't hurt to have a look at that again.
see if we can, because a lot of people do this going all the way down to Bury St Edmunds. Just one final point, it's an observation. I don't want to embarrass him, but District Councillor Keith Martin is here representing Wetland in official capacity. Now, in the past, years ago, he was always at table. Can I just ask why he has to present from the public gallery instead of being sat at the official table as he's representing Wetland?
I
Mr. Chairman,
I'm
quite happy.
Sorry, I'm just trying to be fair. That was before my time. I had no idea that was done previously.
We've got two other district councillors on the town council. They're retired. Yeah, but you're here as independent, you're not here as town council as well.
I think what. Yeah, I've only known it to ever be like this, to be honest. I know I've been here for just over 2 years, really, so I'm still relatively new to this. The only logical explanation I can think that may have been this way is because the voting rights of those who are around the table. But I'm going to be corrected by Councillor Dow.
No, they used to be round the table, then they got locked, and then they used to sit your chairs down there, didn't they, Keith?
Yeah,
You know, they
that's
sat on
it.
chairs down there, so they're
District
away from there, but on their own little chairs. But there were quite a lot that used to come then, and as you say, it was, hands up.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, Keith, you're welcome to the table if you ever want one. Sorry, yes.
I would just like to correct one thing. I'm 90% certain that the original lease for Ethelborough Scouts had 5 years of rent free, not 3. The reason for that was that Brecon Council donated the Scout Hut to Ethelborough Scouts. It was moved from Thetford to Ethelborough entirely by volunteers. Now I'll correct that, wasn't entirely, but mostly by volunteers, which is why the 5 years rent was given. And I think it might be fair to assume it was why that was extended.
Thank you. I will stand corrected, but I'll go back to my notes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that was donated to the Scouts from Abbey Farm when there's the development there. Because rather than waste it, but the Scouts or the committee done the little groundworks, and then I don't know who done it, but the building was coming on top of it.
Thank
A long
you.
while ago.
Yeah.
Been here 38 years.
Thank you. I'm mindful that we're kind of up on public participation, but I did note that Councillor Busking, Councillor Lane wants to say something. So if you want to conclude your comments briefly, shall we do ladies first again?
Thank
Councillor?
you. I just want to say that a lot of us are relatively new councillors. Phil's only been mayor for 18 months now, and we knew there were problems and we're uncovering them, and human nature is such that we get cross, and then some of us get crosser than others as things are revealed, and we spend time with our jaws on the ground sometimes thinking, I can't believe this. But from a personal point of view, I love the Scouts, I love everything you do, I love everything you stand for. I think we've got some brilliant community things going on in the town, and we do want to move forward. So if we trip up a little bit now and again, just give us a bit of a break, and we do want the best. We're not.
I used to be a cub. I used to be a sixer. I enjoyed that. I still try some of the lessons I learned. I think it's a great organization. It is a problem with council because we have COVID now. Not COVID, because we have Zoom. It's a worrying issue. It's normal in a debate for different people to throw out different thoughts, different ideas. They just bounce one to the other, and in doing so, eventually come to a conclusion and say, this has got to be dealt with, and it's got to be dealt with in a fair way. There is a dilemma often between should we cut off Zoom so that nobody is going to hear anything, or do we have what is a normal, fresh debate that looks at different issues and then comes to a conclusion? Unfortunately, with Zoom work, we could have somebody from Timbuktu said, how are you attacking the Scouts? Because they picked up one line. Or should we simply cut out some of this? It is a dilemma which I think, as a council, we're all the time having to face.
Thank you. It is challenging these times. Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for coming here, first and foremost, and sharing your thoughts and feelings with us. We do take on board what you're saying. Very much so. Thank you. On the next matter, which is any other business, I have one item, which is about the Christmas opening and the need for advertising for the Christmas opening. I understand. If anybody would like to make a comment.
Are we talking about the next meeting?
No, it's the office. So I think if we left it with Christmas shutdown for the office, which I understand normally happens, and what you would like us to do versus what we were going to propose.
What do you propose?
So we were going to propose Christmas Eve is a Friday. So we were going to propose that we stay for the hours that would be open to the public, but then take a half day, if that's okay. The Monday and the Tuesday are bank holidays, so that leaves you with the 29th, 30th and 31st, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, which we are absolutely open to what councillors would like us to do.
What has happened in the past? Do we know?
A mixture, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, we've normally had the days that we take as annual leave.
Do you leave skeleton staff here, or do you have one?
We didn't, well, last year was different because it was COVID. I think the year before that, we did take our days off as annual leave. Suggestions?
First suggestions, Phil?
The issue is if there is a need for an urgent sort of communication with the council. I don't know whether we've got an outer hours or a hotline to the council, and that's something that we've talked about as part of the emergency contingency in the past. I'm very happy for us to have the holiday period for staff over those 3 days as holiday. So the council isn't open. I don't think many would expect that we were open during that period, but having some sort of way of communicating with the council in case of emergency might be a compromise.
We've got the tree set up, haven't we? Have we got a tree set up? Emergency tree? If we could get that set up, then.
Yeah, we can do. I just need guidance to populate that and how we'd like it populated. I'm more than happy to work some of that. I'm more than happy to be an emergency contact for that.
The caretaker will still, I think the ground staff work a little bit as well. I think sometimes we've got the caretakers coming in, but obviously we need to discuss it with them.
So perhaps we could take this discussion, but
I was going to propose that we ensure that there is some form of cover here via phone, or not just the caretaker. So there is a named contact for each of those 3 days. You know,
that's absolutely fine. Yeah, I agree.
During those 3 days, and leave them to sort it out. Really, as long as we know that we've got contact.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A logical solution would be an emergency contact mobile phone, GP page, whatever. That goes to whoever's on duty that day.
Otherwise, we'll ring you still.
I'm happy for that to be made in terms of emergency.
It's just basically a job phone that whoever's on duty has got the job phone.
That's
no problem.
Practical solution. I like it. Great. That's about it for
Thank you.
any other items.
You mentioned the next public meeting to invite the public in a bit earlier for a mince pie.
Yeah, absolutely. I forgot that we were going to discuss that. So our next meeting in December, that was
We'll start at 6.
6 o'clock. Members of the public for a mince pie and a chat with councillors if you want it before we start the meeting at 7. Okay? Bring a bit of festive cheer.
Yeah.
I'm sure Councillor Lane will bring the mince pies. She's very good at catering.
No, I'll be getting Mr. Cobb or someone.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for attendance. We now need a discussion on a private matter as a council. So I propose that we exclude the press and public so that we can have a conversation of a sensitive nature. If anyone would like to second that proposal? Councillor Marsh and Joe. That is approved. Those who are watching at home, we'll close the whole meeting there for the public, but thank you very much for attending and watching.
Oh, my gosh.